Hello, how's it going everyone? So in this video, we're gonna be giving some examples. I'm gonna be looking up a brand inside of the Facebook ad library and gonna give you some examples of the difference between the creative diversity that we see in here, as well as sort of the top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Now, one thing that is very, very important with the Andromeda update is that audiences are dead. And so what that means is that creative is your new form of targeting. So you want to have a top of funnel creative, a middle of funnel creative, and a bottom of funnel creative. And so in this video, I'm gonna be going over some examples of those. Now, keep in mind that the screen here that I've shown before is an example of the different styles of creative that's recommended from the meta disruptors. And so things like UGC, us versus them, face to camera, founder story, product demo, customer testimonials, features and benefits, whitelisting or partner ads is another way to say it, or another version of it, and then positioning test. So these are the recommended variations in order to give the algorithm as much information as possible when it comes to allowing it to test different creative styles. However, a lot of brands, for example, might not want to do founder story or be able to do face to camera. You know, it just kind of depends, or for example, whitelisting or positioning test. But the goal is to have as many of these as possible. And for the best reach, you want to have something that is either very emotionally eye-catching, that looks like native on the platform, that would be like a video, versus that of a static ad. And so if I go over here to an example of this dog brand Chewy, so I watched a couple of these, but I wanted to find some points in here. So let me give you an example of this one right here. We'll start from the very beginning and just watch part of it because I know in the interest of time. So it starts and it says, one of the most common questions I get is, what do I need for my Frenchies? So before I go into this is targeting owners that have Frenchies. So what that means is that with Andromeda, you can get a lot more specific on the specific person you're talking to by the creative itself. So this will find people that either like Frenchies or have Frenchies, something in the ballpark, and then prioritize serving creative towards that person. Not to say that it will only be those people, but it gives it an extra layer towards the client avatar. And Chewy is a massive brand, so they have the capability to test all these different ICPs and have enough budget for that to even happen in the first place. So let's watch part of it real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here because this kind of encapsulates the entire messaging and kind of angle that they're taking. So problem aware, so they're trying to create the problem and then they're trying to create the solution all within one video. Now this is more of a product demo. And so if we were to go back to our sheet over here, we'll see that this would be kind of a combination of, let's say, UGC and then product demo as well. So these kind of overlap with one another. They're not perfectly excluded. However, what that means is that you can kind of get creative with mixing these two together in order to get the messaging across. Now, the key thing that you need when it comes to this is top of funnel messaging versus bottom of funnel messaging. So on this ad, if I go all the way back here, it says one of the most common questions I get is, what do I feed my Frenchies? So they're trying to do, like I said, ask the question, get you to question, your current brand. And then from there, they're going to walk you into explaining the product. Now, I would say that this would be considered more of a top of funnel ad because you're trying to create the problem and then the solution at the same time. It's trying to condense the funnel into one video, which is fine. But typically with Andromeda, you'll see this, and then you'll see another ad about the brand. And then in most case scenarios, you'll see things like this. So for example, all these statics over here as like the bottom of funnel creative that will get the click and the conversion. And the reason for that is because this is just showing you, here's the product, do you want to buy it or not? And whenever you're looking at conversion-based data that's going to flow into the algorithm, it's going to tie bottom of funnel people towards this product. Because if I'm someone that doesn't know anything about the brand whatsoever, I'm not just going to see this and say, oh, that's a cool brand, I'm going to now look into it more and then convert on like a founder's video or something, right? So the first video created the overall problem and a solution. Need more touch points, reminders would be statics, right? You can even include things like this. You can kind of see right here on the specific And let me actually go back a little bit on this. So let me go back here. So let me actually zoom in on this. So when it comes to this specific ad itself, it's not necessarily giving you all the information in a flashy way. It's just showing you the product. And then it has some bit of information on here, but it's not really driving emotion. It's just displaying what you already in Meta's eyes need, right? You're already in the market for it. You already went to the website. You went to the brand. I know I need this. I'm going to buy it. Like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay, that's right. I'm going to go buy it now. And so what tends to happen in a lot of ad accounts is they see these types of ads performing really well because they're further down the funnel in the process. And so then they turn off all these other ads because they think, oh, these ads aren't performing, so I'm just not going to count them as a conversion, when the reality is they're working towards top of funnel. And so it's very, very important that if you do not have an account that has both top of funnel and bottom of funnel, that you pretty much create it however you can, whether it's combining product demos, UGC ads together, founders videos, whatever you can at all, to make sure that you're able to talk about the pain point and then come in with the solution. So let's watch one more over here as another sort of style that they're using, which is the pain point and then into the product demo.
I wish mom or dad would notice my paw licking. It's my way of saying my gut needs help.
Your dog's licking, scratching, and chewing is often their desperate way of telling you they need your help. You see, when your dog's gut balance is out of whack, it can have a knock-on effect on their immune system and make your dog more sensitive to allergens in the environment. That's when you see these pesky behaviors. Thankfully, it's easy to support your dog's gut with these tasty soft chews that are packed with good bacteria. They're expertly made to optimally support your dog's gut balance and immune response all year round. Support your dog's gut today.
Pet Lab Co.'s best-selling probiotic chew is available at Chewy. Click the link on screen to claim 50% off your first order today.
Okay, so this is a very interesting one. So the first thing that we have to remember is that this is like the first, video that we watched, right? It's going for the actual problem and then moving into the solution. But now there is a layered on 50% off sales offer that's baked into this. And so if people watch through the whole entire process, they get to the sales. And the issue, and I would actually be very careful with this, is that typically whenever there's a sale campaign or an offer that is salesy, it's going to get prioritized in the algorithm as bottom of funnel. Because let's say that I saw something that was just this ad here, here's the problem, here's the solution, come check it out, versus if I were to see, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's the 50% off offer. You're only getting that if you watch the full, and if people do, then this is typically going to prioritize more bottom of funnel traffic, because like, oh, I was on the fence about it, now I'm thinking about it more, and now I'm going to convert because it's 50% off. And so the call to action is the offer of 50% off, not necessarily the product itself. And so whenever you run sales campaigns, you have to be very careful about adding more percentages off inside of the ad copy, because that gives the algorithm a signal or the ability to go more bottom of funnel, because you're trying to scoop up people that, number one, are already familiar with the brand, they're curious about it, and then they see the offer and that causes them to pull the trigger. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but if you're going outbound, this is not something that I would necessarily see as sustainable from a long-term perspective, because you're adding in an extra layer to try to get them to convert right away versus educating them through the process and allowing Andromeda to match people with specific ads, right? So we're trying to do too much in one from what it looks like in here. And so if I were to go back to the signals over here, you'll see that we have all these different variations to meet people in different parts of the funnel. And so what tends to happen is that if we try to condense it all into one, we're trying to see, an ad multiple times until they get to that endpoint to convert, when the reality is we just need to get the messaging across to the brand and then see, for example, a 50% off, image being the bottom of funnel. And then Andromeda will start to scoop people up, because it's only able, or it's leaning more into the specific creative and not the watch time of that creative, and having that be kind of a barrier, right? We want to have more layers of, this is top of funnel, this is middle funnel, and this is bottom of funnel, so we can kind of play with the different styles of creative versus trying to combine it all into one. So whenever you're making creative for a business on Facebook, obviously the best practice is to have all of these. However, if you don't, get the core idea in mind where you're saying this is going to attract more people, I'm going to get my message across and drive more questions just in terms of just top of funnel. And then at least something that has some kind of value proper offer that you can really lean into. Now, you can run sales campaigns. A lot of people will do, for example, join the email list and get 10% off your first order or something of that sort. That's kind of an evergreen sales, offer. But what I tend to find be a big issue in the space is people that rely so much on sales that they don't actually build out the funnel. They just have people that are waiting and then they end up converting. Now, some business models this works for, like fashion, for example, where people are waiting for the new drops. That is a very, very common one that I know of. However, the issue is that you're going to have a really weird cycle of cash flow. And if you have too many drops, each single new drop of that new sale is going to get diminished as you grow the business. And so you want to be very, very careful whenever you push out sales ads, because you have to realize that you're most likely going to squeeze the sponge, meaning you're going to consume your already warm traffic more so than you're going to generate new. And that leads into scenarios where your NCAC skyrockets, it costs way too much for a new customer, and you're just cycling repeat customers, and your MER is barely holding on as you're losing that cash flow because you're not necessarily contributing cash towards growth, because you just see ROAS or you're looking at a platform and don't know why we're not able to grow past that point of warm traffic. So super important to at least get that baseline down. So recapping, layer on top of funnel and bottom of funnel ads. If you can add on as much variations as possible, that is awesome. That's the best case scenario. If you can't, just get that baseline done. And from there, keep in mind that ROAS is not going to be the be all end all. It's just a way to measure, and it's a way to sort of see what's going on, but not the black and white truth when it comes to that. So if you want to know more evidence and see the proof of all of this in action, I have another channel called CProGrowth that goes over the specifics and gives you actual real information versus just a simplified version of it here. And so if you have any questions or doubts on this and think that I'm another talking head on YouTube that's just blasting theory with no evidence, check out the CProGrowth channel where we have all of that for you twice a week, constantly uploading. And yeah, I'll see you guys around. Thanks.